She left me for a better man. She never knew I controlled his future. I remember the exact moment she said it, because it wasn't said in anger. It wasn't during a fight or a breakup scene. We were sitting across from each other in a quiet cafe, steam rising from our coffee cups. The kind of place couples go when they still pretend everything is fine. She stirred her drink slowly, didn't look at me, and said, almost thoughtfully, "I just don't think you're in a place financially to be a husband." For a second, I honestly thought I misheard her, not because the words were complicated, but because of how calmly they landed. No raised voice, no emotion, just a statement, like she was pointing out the weather. And that calmness made it worse. It told me she had already accepted this as truth, long before she ever said it out loud. I felt my chest tighten, not with anger, but with confusion. My mind raced through everything I'd been providing, without ever counting. Showing up, listening, being there when things fell apart. None of that seemed to matter in that moment. All she could see was a number I didn't have yet. I looked at her, waiting for a follow-up. Some softness, some reassurance, something that sounded like, "We'll figure it out together." But it never came. She took a sip of her coffee, completely composed, like she'd just crossed an item off a list. That was the moment I realized this conversation didn't start at that table. It started weeks ago, maybe months, and I was the last one to know. Before that moment, our life together had felt normal. Not exciting in a social media way, but real. We split groceries without keeping score. We argued about what to watch, not about money. On Sundays, we stayed in bed too long and talked about places we'd travel someday, always assuming time was on our side. I wasn't rich. I never pretended to be. But I was consistent. I paid my bills, showed up on time, kept my promises. I thought that counted for something. I thought being reliable was the foundation, not a flaw. Looking back, I can see the small shifts I ignored. The way she started comparing our life to other people's. The casual comments about her friends' partners, what they drove, where they ate, how fast they were moving forward. I told myself it was just conversation, just noise. But sitting there in that cafe, hearing her reduce our entire relationship to a financial checkpoint I hadn't passed yet, those memories replayed differently. They stopped feeling random. They lined up. She wasn't asking if we'd build a future anymore. She'd already decided who she wanted to build it with. And in that quiet, carefully worded sentence, I understood something that hurt more than the words themselves. She wasn't disappointed in me. She was done believing in me. After that, the space between us grew fast, like something invisible had been cut. We still texted, still shared a few routines, but the warmth was gone, replaced by politeness, the kind you use with someone you've already started letting go of. Her phone was always face down now. Notifications that used to buzz freely were suddenly silent the moment I walked into the room. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd answer easily, too easily, like she'd practiced the tone. "Just a friend from work." Always that phrase, always delivered with a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. She started staying out later, coming home with stories that felt incomplete. Details skipped, names never mentioned. And I hated myself for noticing, for counting minutes, for replaying her words in my head and wondering if this was the part where I was supposed to fight harder. But I didn't. Not because I didn't care, because something inside me was already tired. Tired of feeling like I was auditioning for my own relationship. Tired of measuring myself against someone I'd never met. The tension didn't explode. It thickened. Every quiet dinner felt heavier than a fight. Every laugh sounded forced. And deep down, I think we both knew the truth long before it was said out loud. She was already halfway gone. I was just waiting for the moment she'd stop pretending I hadn't noticed. She finally stopped pretending on a Tuesday night of all nights. Nothing dramatic, no shouting. She sat across from me on the couch, knees angled away, hands folded like she was about to deliver bad news to a stranger. That's when she told me she'd been seeing someone else. She didn't call it cheating. She said it happened naturally, that it started as conversations, then connection, then clarity. She said he understood her goals, that he pushed her, that being with him made her feel like she was finally moving forward. I remember nodding while my ears rang like I was underwater. Every sentence felt rehearsed, softened just enough to sound reasonable. She kept saying she didn't want to hurt me, which somehow made it hurt more, because it meant she'd had time to prepare for this while I was still trying to catch up. Then she said, not cruelly, almost apologetically, that line about me being kind, dependable, safe, and then the pause, the part where she admitted those things weren't enough anymore. That was when I understood this wasn't about another man. Not really. It was about how she saw me now, as someone she had outgrown, as a phase that served its purpose. I didn't ask the details. I didn't ask how long. I didn't ask his name. I just listened, quietly absorbing the fact that the person sitting in front of me had already rewritten our entire story without me in it. And in that silence, something fragile finally broke. Not loudly, not all at once, but enough that I knew there was no version of this where I stayed and kept my dignity. I packed my things the next morning while she was at work. Not out of spite, out of necessity. Staying would have meant watching someone slowly replace me in my own life, and I wasn't strong enough for that. Every drawer I opened felt like proof that we'd been real once. Every item I left behind felt like acceptance. She texted while I was loading the last box into my car, asked if we could talk later. I told her I needed space. That was the last honest sentence I said for a long time. The days after were quiet in a way that felt unnatural. No good morning texts, no shared routines, just time, too much of it. I replayed her words on loop, trying to find the exact moment I became insufficient. Wondering if working harder, earning more, or speaking up sooner would have changed anything. At night, the shame crept in. Not the kind that makes you cry, but the kind that makes you go silent. The kind that convinces you everyone else saw your replacement coming before you did. I avoided friends. I avoided questions. I told people it ended mutually, because saying the truth felt like admitting failure. I wasn't angry yet. I was hollow, existing between heartbreak and disbelief, pretending to move on while something inside me stayed stuck at that cafe table, hearing her say it again and again, that I wasn't enough to be chosen. And just when I thought the worst part was over, her life without me began moving faster than I ever imagined. I found out how fast through a post I wasn't supposed to see. A mutual friend had shared it, smiling faces, a caption about new beginnings. And there she was, standing next to a man I didn't recognize, her hand resting on his arm like it had always belonged there. It hadn't even been 3 months. From there, it felt like the updates came weekly. A new apartment downtown, weekend trips,
dinners at places we used to walk past and joke about someday trying. Everything looked effortless, like the life we talked about had simply swapped me out. I told myself not to look, but I did. Late at night, scrolling longer than I should have, convincing myself it was closure when it was really punishment. Each photo tightened something in my chest, not jealousy exactly, but the quiet humiliation of being replaced so easily. That's when the engagement announcement hit. No build-up, just a ring, a date, and hundreds of comments congratulating a future that used to feel like it was mine. I stared at his name longer than the picture, letting it sink in. And that's when something unexpected happened. I recognized it. Not from her stories, not from work gossip, from a file I'd seen more than once. A stalled business, pending approvals, delays that weren't accidental. My stomach dropped, not from anger, but from the sudden understanding that Viz's story wasn't over. For the first time since she left, I stopped feeling like the abandoned one. I felt like the only person in the room who knew what was coming next. I didn't smile. I didn't feel relieved. If anything, the realization made me uneasy, because with that recognition came a choice I hadn't asked for. I knew exactly what he was trying to build, and I knew how fragile it was. One approval, one green light, one signature standing between him and the future they were celebrating online. And the strange part was how easy it would have been to help. I'd helped plenty of people before, quietly, professionally, without anyone ever knowing my name. That was the nature of my work. No one applauded the process.
They only noticed when things moved forward, or when they didn't. I went to work the next day with that knowledge sitting heavy in my chest. Every email felt louder. Every document felt personal, even though I reminded myself it wasn't supposed to be. I told myself to stay objective, to separate my past from my responsibilities. And I did. I didn't flag anything unnecessarily. I didn't interfere. I didn't slow things down. I just didn't speed them up either. His file stayed in the same lane as everyone else's. Same reviews, same waiting periods. Same unanswered questions that required time. That restraint surprised me. A few months earlier, I would have called it weakness. Now it felt like control. Meanwhile, her messages started appearing again. Casual at first. A check-in, a memory, a question wrapped in nostalgia. I replied politely, briefly, enough to be human, not enough to invite conversation. I could sense it then, the shift in her tone, the curiosity she didn't want to admit yet, the growing awareness that maybe she'd walked away from more than she understood. And still, I said nothing. Because the most powerful position I'd ever been in wasn't having leverage, it was not needing to use it. Time did what confrontation never could. Their plans began to stretch, then bend. What was supposed to be temporary delays turned into just a few more months. The apartment they'd rushed into became a source of stress. Conversations about the future grew quieter, heavier, less certain. I didn't hear this directly from her at first. I heard it through the same mutual channels that once delivered smiling updates. Fewer posts, no more countdowns. Subtle shifts that only show when things aren't going the way they were promised. When she finally reached out again, it was different. Not nostalgic, not casual, careful. She asked how I was really doing, told me she'd always admired how steady I'd been under pressure, said she missed how safe things felt with me. I read the message slowly, noticing what wasn't there. No apology, no accountability, just the quiet testing of whether the door was still unlocked. I responded kindly. I always did. I told her I was doing well. that work was steady, that life felt calmer now. I wished her the best. Every sentence was true. None of them opened space for her to step back in. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It was final. Months later, I saw her again by accident. A grocery store aisle. A pause. A polite smile. Her eyes lingered just a second too long, scanning me like she was recalculating something she'd gotten wrong before. We exchanged politenesses. Nothing more. And as I walked away, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace.
Not because she struggled, not because I'd won, but because I had survived the part that almost broke me and built something quiet, solid, and mine without ever needing to explain myself. Some people leave because they think you're behind. They don't realize you were never racing at all. Years passed without any dramatic closure, and that was the point. My life didn't transform overnight, and it didn't need to. It grew slowly, intentionally. Better habits, better boundaries. A version of myself that didn't need to be impressive to feel complete. Every now and then, I'd hear small updates about her through people who didn't realize they were offering them. The marriage happened, but the excitement didn't last. Plans changed, paths narrowed. Life did what it always does when it's built on urgency instead of understanding. I never corrected anyone, never shared my side, never explained the part I played without playing it at all. That chapter stayed quiet, exactly where it belonged. What stayed with me wasn't the betrayal, it was the clarity that followed. The realization that love isn't proven by how much you endure, and worth isn't measured by how loudly you're chosen. Some people don't walk away because you're lacking. They walk away because they mistake patience for stagnation. And the truth is, the moment she decided I wasn't enough, she unknowingly gave me something I didn't have before. Freedom. Not to get revenge, not to be seen, but to build a life where no one ever had to be convinced of my value again. The last time I thought about that cafe, it wasn't with anger or sadness. It was with distance, like remembering an old version of myself I no longer lived inside. The man who sat there trying to understand why love suddenly had conditions attached to it. Back then, I thought being left meant I'd failed some invisible test, that I hadn't grown fast enough, earned enough, become enough in time. But standing where I am now, I see it differently. Some people don't want to grow with you. They want to arrive somewhere already built. And when you're the kind of person who builds quietly, patiently, without needing applause, that can look like nothing, until it's everything. I didn't get closure from a conversation. I didn't get satisfaction from watching anyone fall apart. I got something better. Confidence that didn't depend on being chosen by the wrong person. She once told me I was too broke to be a husband. What she never realized was that I was rich in the one thing that actually lasts: time. And I finally used it on myself. I don't tell this story for sympathy, and I don't tell it to look strong. I tell it because a lot of people mistake quiet for weakness.
And patience for lack of direction. I did too once. Losing her felt like proof that I wasn't enough. But it turned out to be proof of something else entirely. That the right things don't rush, and the right people don't measure love by what you have before you've had time to finish becoming yourself. There was no moment where she begged to come back, no dramatic apology, no scene that would make a headline. Just two lives moving in different directions, one louder than the other. And that was enough. Because the real ending wasn't about her realizing my value. It was about me never needing anyone else to again. And if there's one thing I learned from all of it, it's this: being underestimated hurts, but being free from the need to prove yourself
is priceless. I didn't win because someone else lost. I won because I stopped letting someone else decide my timeline, my worth, or my direction. Some endings don't come with closure conversations or public karma. They come quietly, when you realize you're finally at peace with who you are, even if no one's watching. That's how I knew the story was over. Not when she walked away, but when it no longer mattered that she did. After that, life didn't feel like something I was chasing anymore. It felt like something I was living. Mornings were quieter. Decisions felt lighter. I stopped measuring progress by who stayed and started measuring it by how steady I felt standing alone. Every once in a while, I'd catch myself thinking about how close I came to begging for someone who never planned to stay.
And that thought no longer hurt. It reminded me how far I'd come without needing to announce it. Some people think revenge is about being seen winning. For me, it was realizing I didn't need an audience at all. There's a strange moment that comes long after heartbreak, and who you became because of it. I didn't become richer overnight. I didn't become louder or harder or colder. I became clearer about what I offer, about what I tolerate, about how little validation actually matters when your life feels aligned. She once measured my future by what I didn't have yet. I learned to measure mine by what I was building, quietly, day by day, without needing anyone to wait around and believe in it. And that's the part no one warns you about. Sometimes the best revenge isn't success, it's peace. If you're listening to this and you're in that early stage, the part where silence feels like failure and being left feels like a verdict, I want you to know something I didn't back then. Not everyone who walks away is right, and not everyone who stays quiet is losing. Some people will only see your value once it's no longer available to them. Others will never see it at all. Neither outcome should stop you from continuing forward. I didn't need her to regret her choice for my life to improve. I didn't need an apology to move on. The moment I stopped waiting for recognition was the moment everything started fitting together. That's how it ends. Not with bitterness, not with triumph, just a calm understanding that being overlooked by the wrong person can sometimes be the thing that finally sets you free. The funny thing is, if I could go back to that cafe and hear those words again, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't argue, I wouldn't defend myself, I wouldn't try to prove potential to someone already shopping for guarantees. Because that moment, as small and quiet as it felt, redirected my entire life. It taught me that love built on conditions will always feel like a test you're about to fail. And that the right kind of life, the one that actually lasts, doesn't come from rushing to meet someone else's timeline. It comes from staying, even when they don't.